people might disagree, but sex is a big deal. Maybe to men, it's like, oh, well, it was just sex, but sex is a big deal.
I've compromised on quite a bit, and that had led me down a path of feeling empty in a relationship.
Are you willing to give the most precious thing you have, which is time, for that person to evolve into the person that you want? Because we're not all perfect. I'm not perfect.
The right man, the right woman will also change in the same perspective. Looking back now, Iman, if you were to go back to your first love, what's some advice that you would give yourself?
Run.
Thank you once again for tuning in to Get Real with Rome. I have my guest here, Iman, one of my good friends for a couple years now. And the reason why I brought Iman on this podcast is this particular episode is centered around modern dating, love, and relationships. And me and Iman have had several conversations about this particular topic. And I just like her point of view. She has a very, I would say, traditional, I would think you would even call it traditional point of view. And I kind of want to open this up with a question. Let me ask you this. What is your viewpoint on what is a perfect relationship? What does that look like to you?
I feel like that's a trick question because I feel like there is no such thing as a perfect relationship. I feel like every relationship is going to lack something. I feel like there is no perfect person out there that's going to necessarily check off all, the marks, I should say. But a perfect relationship, or the closest to a perfect relationship, is two people that complete each other where they lack. And then I'm mostly, I believe in gender roles. I do believe that each gender excels at something or does it better, not necessarily to take away from the other gender, but just in the sense that we are equal, but we are not the same. Equal does not necessarily mean the same.
I like that. Now, what do you mean? I want to dive more deep into that, actually. What do you mean by gender roles? What is a male's role in a relationship to you? And what is a female's role?
I think a female's role should be, support, nurturing, and then I think a man's role should be protecting, providing. I think women, or I believe that women are mentally much, much stronger than men, which equals out to the men being physically and emotionally stronger than the women. And I think being mentally stronger equals out to those two. So I think that's where the balance is, I think that, like, for example, I believe that I am better at organizing than most men. But then again, most men are probably better than a lot of things than me. I mean,
yeah.
I can think of at least, 10 things that I would rather a guy do than me do it myself. And it doesn't mean that I think any less of myself. I just think that a man is probably better equipped to do it and just do it for me. Why not?
What comes to mind is like the girls that are like, oh, my shoes, I bought it. My clothes, I bought it. And I get that, totally understand. But honestly, it feels much better when somebody else buys your things for you. And it's not to say that you can't do those things, but me as a man, it's a lot nicer too to know that I woke up and somebody made me breakfast or dinner, right? And I didn't have to do it myself because I'm totally capable of doing that for myself, but it just feels much better. And I could see why I think that I too have a very rigid thinking when it comes to male and female roles in a relationship. Probably a little bit different than modernism, but not exactly like traditional either, because when I was in a relationship, I was very much doing the dishes. I was very much doing the laundry. I primarily did the laundry for us. I primarily went and did the shopping for us. But there was roles that she took a hold of and took accountability of, that I really enjoyed. But, with that being said, let me ask you this, is what do you feel like is a controversial, do you have any controversial views on a relationship now based upon people our age are dating and in relationships a lot different than our parents' generation,
To start, I think that a lot of people associate being, more traditional in relationships with toxic masculinity. I think that a male um, feels their most masculine when they are able to do things for their girl. And I think those men that talk down on that are just not able to do it, or they don't have the drive or the motivation to get themselves to a place to be able to do it. I think that they secretly want to be that guy where, like, I'm in charge and I'm taking care of you. And I think that once a woman, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to be in charge. I mean, I am in charge of my life because, that's the place where I'm at. So, you do it because you have to. But, if you ever felt in a situation where you are secure, where you could just let go of the reins so somebody else can just lead and then you sit back, like, hello, why not? And I think a lot of women see that maybe as the controversial part. I think a lot of women see that as being, codependent. I don't see it as that way. I see it as, it's part of the relationship for, the man to fulfill those things. It's like I see it as his duty. Some guys might, for the other gender, the controversial part, some people might accuse me of, saying, like, whatever, gold digger or whatever, I'm
Mm.
sure I can think
She
of
wants
many
something out of
things.
this relationship.
Exactly.
Mm.
But this is the thing. Both sides enter a relationship because they want something out of it. Are and this something doesn't have to be necessarily, a negative thing. You are entering a relationship for companionship, for, for you know, finding your other half. And I think where people um, go wrong, in my opinion, is that they're looking for that unconditional love. And that is, in my opinion, like, delusional.
Yeah.
Because I
Mm.
only see that with, like, my family members, like people that, like, we're blood related. I'm stuck with you, but we love under conditions, and those don't have to necessarily relate to monetary things.
Mm.
But
Ooh, there's so
yeah.
much to unpack here.
Right.
Wow. Okay, first, let me say this is I have come across women time and time again that are in a relationship with a man that they feel like isn't in control. And they are constantly sharing with me, because obviously what we do for work, we do their hair, they're like, oh, I just wish he just took more control. Right. And I feel like in today's era is unfortunate that it is almost scary to take control as a man, because there's so many different identities that people identify as a woman, that it's scary. Because let's just say I'm like, oh, we're gonna go to dinner at this time, this place, I want you to wear that beautiful black dress, right? To the wrong woman, to a very modern woman, she's gonna see that as, wow, this guy's red flags. He's controlling. He wants to tell me where and what to do. Nobody tells me what to wear. I don't want to eat there, right? But to a right woman, that could be viewed as, wow, this guy's taking control. He's doing everything that I want in a man. So it's just very interesting because modernism and modern dating has completely flipped the script on so many different things, right? Like in a world where roles now are not very clearly defined, right?
Going back to traditionalism really means that, back in the day, they didn't deal with this bullshit. Why? Because, you dated a girl, you courted a girl, you had, if you ended up even having sex, you're most likely marrying. Here, nowadays people treat sex as this very casual thing, as
Mm,
like it's just, and I think that's where that comes from. And that's why, I'm more traditional because, a lot of people might disagree, but sex is a big deal. Maybe to men, it's like, oh, well, it was just sex, but sex is a big deal. It's like, it's the most intimate thing that can happen between two people. And I think this is one of the parts where the whole, we'll call it, against the whole modern thing, is that they're like, oh yeah, we had sex, but it was just sex. Like, I think if we talk to somebody from 25, 30 years ago, they wouldn't use those you know same words um to describe
mm,
you know the most intimate thing that could happen between a man. And then that's not something against women or men. I mean, there are women that are just out for sex, and then there's men that are just out for that. But yeah, I
this kind of brings me back to what you were talking about earlier, which is, conditional love and non-conditional love. And I think that from a young age, we've been groomed from the different TV shows that we've watched, from like what Disney has put out. You know what I mean? Like this very fairy tale like outlook on love, and like these rom-coms that people would watch growing up, right? Where it's like this fairy tale. And the reality is that's not how love is, especially now, I think it's okay. I think it's perfectly fine to have conditions on love. I think that you get to a point in a relationship where love then becomes unconditional. But I don't think it starts there. I think that it starts with, this is what I want from a relationship, and this is what I deserve, and this is what I'm not willing to compromise on. And moving forward with those boundaries for yourself, because like for me, I know that in my past relationships, I've compromised on quite a bit. And that had led me down a path of feeling empty in a relationship because I compromised on so many different things for the sake of love, right? Um, Let me ask you this, Iman. Have you ever been in love before?
Oh,
There we go.
yes, I have.
Okay. And has it only been once, or do you feel like you've been in love multiple times?
I think that I've been in love twice.
Okay. That's that's a lot to unpack, because I mean that's a lot because, oh, let me ask you this actually. What do you feel like got you to that point to say I'm in love with this person versus all the other relationships, you know?
The honest truth, when I sit here and I think about my, whatever relationships I've been in, I, if you're seeing this, oh well. So look, I think that every relationship that I've been in, because I'm also, I'm not a casual dater. Like, it's either we're
Mm,
doing this or we're not. Um, so I think that I think that while I was in a relationship, I thought I was in love, but I didn't realize, like, now sitting here kind of thinking back, I, I've been in more than two relationships. So now thinking back, I'm like, okay, it's only been twice, because only afterwards and especially how long like it took me to get over the person. I'm like, okay, like I really was in love. And then there was other times where um I'm like, wow, this is kind of like a relief because to me, love is not the good parts of a person. Love is about whether you can coexist with the parts that you're not necessarily happy with.
Mm.
Are you willing to, you know, give the most precious thing you have, which is time, for that person to evolve into the person that you want? Because we're not all perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm pretty sure there's things where, you know, in a relationship where I lack, for sure. But then again, it just boils down to whether, you know, the other person's view are gonna, those things are gonna be tolerable, you know, for them to wait for me to, you know, to evolve and grow, because I'm definitely not the same person from, you know, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And there's definitely things that I look back and I'm like, well, I was wrong in that, you know, and I was wrong in that. And yeah, I guess it boils down to, you know, the things that you're willing to compromise on and the things that you're not willing to compromise on.
Do you think that there's a timeline? Like, hey, I'm willing to give you 3 months, 2 weeks, 1 year to change who you are
At
in
this
order for
point
this
of
to
my
work.
life, there is no timeline. I'm saying something once, and if you don't listen, I just, yeah,
Okay.
I just, yeah, no. And it also depends on what it is.
Mhm.
You know, it depends. It depends on what it is. You know, certain things
Mhm.
are just like, oh well, you can just accept it and move on because it's not that big of a deal. And certain things where it's like, you know, because a lot, oftentimes change has to come within the person. It has to like you change because you have already had that moment where it just kind of clicked for you on
Mm.
your own. You
Yeah.
know, that's a very important thing to happen. For me, it's like there was certain things where it was like almost like a, like, you know, like a cartoon, like a light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, oh, now it clicks. So you have that conviction from within that you need to change. But if you have someone barking at you, nagging you the whole time,
Mhm.
I don't think that that's enough to change somebody.
Mm.
You know,
Interesting.
I've heard this before. Somebody said, you know, men, you know, get with a woman, hoping for her to stay the same, and she changes, and a woman gets with a man, hoping for him to change, but he stays the same.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
know,
I could see
I
that
could, I
actually.
just want to say
I could
from
definitely see
this,
that.
he's not going to change for you. I know you think that you're special, but he's not changing for you. Just, he's only going to change if he wants to change.
Man, I have an opposing view. I think that for sure a man is willing to change for the right woman. And and I say that in this sense. I say that she has to be the right woman that he'd be willing to change for, because the change should never be a negative change. It should always be a positive, right? If you get with the right woman, she should make you healthier, wiser, more spiritual, more financially stable, right? And if you find yourself, and I speak from experience because I've been down plenty of relationships and I've been a long-term relationship guy. And I could tell you that as a man, I've been in relationships where it was nothing but a spiral. And like looking back, I think, wow, why the fuck would I put myself in that situation? Right? Because this woman only brought out the side of me that wanted to party, that wanted to do drugs, that wanted to drink, right? But she never brought out the part of me that was ambitious and entrepreneurial and spiritual. You know what I mean? And I think that for the right man, the right woman will also change in the same perspective. You know, looking back now, Iman, if you were to go back to your first love, what's some advice that you would give yourself?
Run. Do not, do not, because it was spiral. It was a lot of, I learned so many lessons. I was so naive. Oh my God, I learned so much. Um, and it was actually the complete opposite. I was the one trying to, it's interesting that you brought that out. That you brought that up, that, you've been in a relationship where you felt like that woman, all she, was just the drinking and the partying and this and that and that. So my first relationship, my first love was, complete opposite. I was the one trying to anchor him, and I never really, everybody that knows me, I'm, never been like, I mean, I turn up, but I've never been, the party kind of person,
Yeah,
you know.
I know. We try to get you
Yeah,
to come out.
it's not happening exactly. And if it is happening, I've been mentally preparing myself for it for like 3 months. So I was the person, trying to be, trying to anchor him and trying to, just be the voice of reason, but he really did not want to. It doesn't matter how much I tried. He did not have that conviction from within, like I said, to want to be that person. That is where he was in life, that he wanted to live that carefree life. And I feel like
Ooh, I think that's a good point.
I put myself in a situation where, I caused, no, I didn't, he caused me a lot of trauma, emotionally, mentally, but at the same time, I'm the type of person that likes to take accountability, because I put myself in a situation where, I could have just left, but I was, so in love, and I'm like, no, and let me try. And you can sit there and try to, you know, have a positive impact on a man, but tear yourself down in the process. And that is why I'm saying that you can only try to like positively influence somebody so much, because if they don't want that for themselves,
Yeah.
you can't force it upon them.
No, I agree with that. I
You
agree
know?
with that.
So
I agree with that. I think a lot has to do with timing too. I think that if you run into a man that's in the phase of life where he's not ready to be ambitious, he's not ready. He says, I think a lot of people are talk. I think a man can be very easily persuaded to be young, and I want to be ambitious, I want to be hungry, I want bigger and better things for my life. But it all comes down to action, because that old saying, action does speak louder than words.
I think it's a facade. I think
I
who
agree.
doesn't want to be successful?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to, I think I have a lot of respect for men that are like, you know what, I do, they want a home, or, a stay-at-home wife, and, the whole family life, but they're like, I'm just not in a place to be able to give that right now. And that's, that's better than to sit there and say, like, no, and, women, all they want, is money, and that, they just want to sit around and do nothing, and, and it's like, I have a hard time believing that. I think it's just a facade. I think deep down inside, like, you want to be successful and be, like the hero, like almost like, I feel like that's like, in a way, like that's how men are wired.
Yeah.
And when they're not able to give that, there's that bitterness, because, almost like I see it as self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you don't have that right now, but you can strive for it. You could say that this is where I'm trying to get to. It's nothing wrong with that. I don't think anybody has it all.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think for the longest time, that was something I struggled with myself. I think I was a lot of talk and no action. Is your mic something wrong with your mic?
I think I pressed something, like I
No?
pressed this, and I'm not sure what that does.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
No, you're totally fine. Something that came to mind was this. I think that in a lot of it came to mind when I asked you that question is what advice would you give yourself in the last time that you loved? And for me, if I had to if I had to tell myself that same advice or go back in time, I'd say stop trading, right? I feel like in relationships, especially long-term ones, you get in this point in a relationship where everything's a trade. I'm not willing to do this unless she's willing to do that. And I won't do this for him unless he does that for me. And I feel like it becomes this trading thing. And it's not verbal. It's very much mental. And you see like, oh, he left his clothes on the ground again. All right, well, I'm not going to make him breakfast today. Or I'm not going to massage his back today. Or I feel like
I strongly disagree. I think if you're doing something in a relationship, it should not be done in a way where you're tit for tat.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Where you know, I don't know. Just for example, like if we go right now and we're at a coffee shop, and I'm like, you know what, Vince, I'll get your coffee. I'm getting your coffee because I'm choosing to. If I'm getting your coffee because there is an ulterior motive for it, I personally keep your coffee. Like, you know, if you're gonna do something, you're doing it because you're choosing to. But if it's, you know, you're doing it like if it's a chess game, that's not what a relationship is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
Like, and left his clothes on the ground. I think that if they're gonna hate me. I think that if a guy is leaving his clothes on the ground, no, I'm not saying you're the maid. No, I'm not saying that it's your job. I think that especially if love to us, love to a lot of people, or most people, is a combination of Disney, like you said, but also what we saw our parents do. You know, I have this traditional view because I saw my father, to me, really be a man. You know, some people don't have that. Some people were raised by single mothers. Some people were raised by single fathers. And I think that in a way, the way we're raised, we're programmed to see that as normal. And sometimes not everybody grows up in I don't. Not everybody grows up the same. I don't want to necessarily use the word normal, but going back to it, for me, it's like it's fine. I'm not gonna. I'll choose other battles. The whole battle of picking up his clothes from the ground, in my experience, those are the little things that are not going to change. Like, it's kind of annoying, and there's probably certain things about me that are annoying too, that it's like, ugh, you know. I don't think like, even with the people that I have unconditional love with, which is my family, you know, when we lived in the same house, they did shit that I'm like, this is annoying, but that's just the way the person is, and it might change. But personally, for me, I'm not gonna make breakfast because he left his clothes on the ground.
I see.
You know, like.
Yeah, I think
that sounds very childish.
Yeah, I think where I was coming from was more so from the point of it not necessarily being the clothes. That was just more of an example, but like, you know, I was very much in a relationship where it was a chess battle, where, you know, certain things just went unsaid. And I think that all of these little things would build up, and we would pretend like we were in a relationship with no issues, but there were underlying issues. Just like in our health, right? Like, people can have underlying health conditions and operate and move throughout the world as if there's nothing wrong with them. And seeing them, you're like, oh, that's a normal person.
Well, it sounds like like the communication wasn't there.
No. See, that's the thing, is you can have communication, but not have open communication. And this is what I mean by that real quick. Let me explain. You can communicate, honey, I'm not feeling good about this, that, and this, right? And that's communication. But open communication is being able to say something hurtful to a partner respectfully and not be attacked. As an example, right? Let's just say, this is just a popular example. How do you tell your partner that she's getting fat, right? How do you tell her that she's getting overweight without being disrespectful? Because maybe you as a male, you as a female, that's something that's important to you. That's a value that's important to you, fitness or health, right? So how do you have communication? You can communicate, hey, let's go to the gym. That's communicating. But communicating, saying, well, you're really thinking, well, you're actually really becoming unattractive to me physically because of your weight. And I want to convey that to you because I love you as a person. And the weight is not that big of a deal, but it right now to me, where you're going right now isn't 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 where I feel comfortable with us in a relationship together. So how do you convey that openly without feeling like you're hurting the other person or that person retaliating against you?
Okay.
Right?
So I think that if you are truly, again, there is a lot of gray area in this question. So
Mhm.
first things first, I think that sometimes the you know it's not about what you say, it's about the way you say it. So if I was a man and I was in that situation, I would just maybe start that journey together. You know, be like, okay, let's go work out together. Let's make it an us thing. That's number one. You know, I wouldn't necessarily say, you know, even in a nice way, I would say, "Oh, you're getting fat and you're becoming unattractive to me," because words matter. And if you say that to a woman, like, I'm not attracted to you anymore, I think to a woman, it's a big deal because in that way, women or men are, well, okay. So to me, I guess I shouldn't say men and women. To me, when to me a relationship is more of an emotional connection. I think that the physical part is more important to men or to the man than it is to me. But I would want my partner to be completely honest. But I think, yeah, if I was a man, the way I would approach what you just said is I would just, be like, okay, let's go work out together. Like I would make it like an us thing. I wouldn't say you need to,
Yeah, and
go work out. And I think that most women, you know, and it also another thing, it matters. Like if that girl just had your kid and you're like, you better give that shit a year because she just
yeah,
birthed your child. Like,
I don't think, and I agree with what you're saying. I think everything comes down to the words and tactfulness of how you say something. But it's not so much the way thing. It could be anything, to be honest with you, because it's the way. I guess what I'm saying is this. It's like, let's just say you're a woman and you find another man physically attractive, like to the point where it's sexual. Like, how do you tell your partner, hey, I find somebody else sexually attractive and I don't understand why I'm feeling this way because I still love you. And this coworker, this person that came to my work, whatever it is, right? I feel this way. It could be with anything. How do you open up to your
I
partner
don't
freely?
understand why the word sexual has to be in there. I think that even the most happy people that are together in relationships that are working out or whatever still think that other people are attractive, whether it's a celebrity or or it's a person walking by. Just because you're with somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that you automatically think everyone else is ugly.
No, no,
I
no.
mean,
I,
let's
I
be
agree.
real.
No, no, I agree with
You
that. But
know?
I guess the deeper.
So no, I think, hold on. The deeper question is that you are seeing something else in that person, or you're feeling like you're having a spark with that person. And I really think that, the moment you start to, s- I think it takes a strong relationship to be able to say, you know what, honey, I am kind of, my eyes are starting to stray away a little because I feel like there's something here that we need to fix.
That's the
But it's
exact thing I'm
also
talking
about
about.
respecting your
Mhm.
relationship where you are not putting yourself in situations where you you can find yourself connecting with another person.
Mm.
Because, you know, I truly believe that, you know, if you met somebody at work and then initially you just really great coworkers and you know, you work together really well. And then I don't know, you start going to company dinners and then tomorrow it's like, oh, it's, you know, a smaller group and it's just three of us and it's that same person again and again and again and again and again. And it just so happens that that person start, you know, another thing, I think that we as humans in general, like when you're in a relationship and you start to like get along with somebody from the opposite sex, you somehow start to seem like, oh wow, my partner doesn't do that and that and that. But that person does. But that person does. And that's just because we're so focused as people on the things that we don't have that we want versus the things that we have
On the lack.
that we want. You know? So it's like it's just about really having that wisdom of like, okay, well, she might have this and this and that where my partner lacks, but my partner, you know, has all these other great things. It's really about not putting yourself in a situation where that can happen. It just depends on how much you respect your relationship. For me, personally, if I'm in a relationship, I'm not even putting myself in, I'm not even giving it the space or the opportunity for me to even like another guy.
Ooh, so this is, oh my gosh, I have so much to say right now. So one is, going back to the original question, is I think what's important and advice I give myself is foster a relationship where it is safe to talk about things very uncomfortable emotionally and physically with your partner. Create a safe space to make that happen. Not just open communication, but hard and tough emotional communication. Second is what you're saying is I've decided like mentally moving forward, right? Emotionally really moving forward, even spiritually moving forward, that as a man, my next serious relationship in life, I'm only hanging out with other married or men that are in serious relationships. I'm cutting out all my single friends.
Birds of feather flock together.
And it's not that I don't love my single friends. It's that, you know, if I'm quitting drinking if I'm an alcoholic and I'm quitting drinking, why would I go to a bar, right? To get some Pepsi or Sprite while everybody else is drinking around me? Because everyone's going to talk about, oh, I love this type.
Yeah, but that's someone with a drinking problem. Do you have a problem?
No, it's not that. But what I'm saying is like, to foster what you, or to back up what you said is like, don't even put yourself in a situation where feelings for another person could come up. Because if you're committed to someone, that's what commitment is.
And
right?
what I meant by that is that, okay, so I'd go out if I wanted to, but if that one guy from work that I think he dresses really nice is gonna be there, for example, I'm not going. But if it's like the guy who, you know, I wouldn't consider in a million years, even if I was single, or the guy that, you know, he's cool at work, we get along, but sometimes I want to just punch him in the face. You understand? But if it's really about what kind of values you have, that's another thing also that's important. Is that, you know, if you think, I don't know, like a guy's a guy, so if you know you're happy at home and everything and you respect your relationship, and the girl at work, you know, that you think like, you know, she's cool and she got a fat ass, you probably shouldn't go out to the bar with that girl or to dinner in a small setting, or, you know, allow yourself for it to even, you know, go there. It's about what kind of, you know, and I also, you know, if everybody would just treat others how they would want to be treated, everything would be so much easier.
Oh yeah, the golden rule. I want to go back to what you said before, is like when we're in a relationship and everything's going good, that's when, you know, you kind of go through this phase of relationship where everything's amazing, right? Everything that person does is fucking perfect. And then you go through this phase where you both get comfortable with each other and everything's going good. And now you start realizing, oh, well, I don't really like the way they stir their tea and they make that little ding, ding, ding noise. Or You start noticing these little things. They're definitely not deal breakers, but you start noticing these little imperfections. Everyone's imperfect. And then you see this next person, right? Like you said, and you focus on the things that they do that are better than your partner. Because now you're in a phase in a relationship where you notice all those things. And I remember, I think it was Steve Harvey that said that you go out there and you see the 20% of the things that you want and you trade that
For the 80.
for the 80% of what you actually have. You know, and it's so crazy to say that and live it because I've lived it. Like you know that I've lived it. Like I had this amazing woman in my life and I went out and I felt like I was lacking something in my relationship and I went out there and I seeked it and I got it and I traded this small percentage of what I wanted for what I truly had. You know what I mean? And I think that people don't give that enough thought because I think that people are afraid to look within and be honest with themselves. You know what I mean? What do you think about that? What do you think how much of a relationship is two people versus you and your inner thoughts and making decisions?
I've never really struggled with the we're just gonna say it. I've never really struggled with the cheating part.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been in like yeah, I never really struggled with that, to be honest. I know it's like such a, kind of almost praising myself, but I'm really not. I just never been, I grew up, in this marriage where infidelity was really not an issue. My parents had other issues, but infidelity really was never an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's where it comes from, where I'm just not wired like that. And I think that my relationship, because you and yourself or your inner thoughts, that's a relationship too. So
Absolutely.
I would look down upon myself if I entertained anything like that. And I'm kind of have a high standard on those things. You know, y'all can call it whatever you want to call it. I think that if you're in a relationship, you shouldn't really be, you know, following all these OnlyFans girls and these people on Instagram, for example, that are it's almost like soft porn. I just think like if that's what you want to sit there and scroll through, to me, it's almost like you're clearly not ready for a spiritual and emotional connection. But going back to that, I've never really struggled with that. I've always been, we'll call it, it's not really stupid, but it's just I can't really think of a more dis- descriptive word. I just been that like stupid love kind of girl where like I won't even check out guys. Like I'm just so focused on that person that like all the guys are almost like not there to me.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know? Um
I think that that's a rarity in today's modern era. I don't think that I think that most modern women aren't like that. And I could be wrong. I could 100% be wrong. But in my personal experience,
most Western modern women.
I 100% agree with that statement. I think that women that were born and raised in the US definitely have a different perspective on relationships and dating than women that have a value outside of the US. And I think I wouldn't doubt that most people that have traveled the world would agree with what I'm saying.
I think it's more than just the US. I think I'm going to go back to the word the West. But at the same time, not one size fits all. I think that there's definitely pockets of culture in America where they are very much still traditional. I mean, we don't want to generalize to everybody. There's always exceptions, but I think, yes, I think in today's social standards, it's very much not based on those family values anymore.
Mm.
I think that people really got this equal thing really you know messed up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because relationships, marriages, in my opinion, are not about 50-50. You know, it's very much 70-30, 60-40, and you know, some days I'm going to be pulling the 70%, some days they're going to be pulling the 70%.
Mm.
That's what it's about. It's about that, um, supporting each other, understanding that the other person is also human and they make mistakes. And then while at the same time, that's where the balance comes in, like I'll support you and I'll understand you and I'll be there for you. But I ain't forgiving cheating. Like it just
Mm.
depends. You know what I'm saying? And that's where it's from one person to the other. Some other women, would say, well, I was married and my husband, cheated, and that's where I decided to see that, he was human and to forgive and to, it's all circumstantial and it's
Yeah, I think it's
all,
all a spectrum, you
yeah,
know.
it all depends. Um, I just know, like, I know personally for me, I know the type of loyalty I bring to the table,
Mm-hmm.
and I would not, nah, I would not
I,
expect
I
any
I
less.
like that because at this stage in my life as a man and as a father, um, and as a brother and as a friend and as a owner of a business, I know that moving forward, like, I mean, that's not who I am. That doesn't define me. What I did in my past doesn't define who I am today. But I think that we can, as a person that has cheated and has been cheated on, I can say that it is a very traumatizing experience to do both.
Oh,
And it
I've been
sounds,
cheated on. Yeah, I know that it's
yeah.
very traumatizing. I've never cheated, but I've been cheated on,
Mm-hmm.
and I know, like, it's a huge blow to your self-esteem. Like, you
Yeah.
start questioning yourself. But go ahead, sorry,
So
continue.
so let me ask you this actually. Because we're kind of closing up right now, but what do you look for in a partner? What are the most important things for you when you look for when you're looking for a partner?
Are you talking about, like, personality-wise?
No, I'm talking about everything. Let's just say you had to
That's
put everything in a bucket, right?
I'm a
The most
woman. We
important.
are very detailed. It's a very long list. Hold on. Let me
Let me pull out
pull
the
out the
Rolodex.
roll. Look, I'm not gonna go into physical characteristics because everybody, has their own taste. I feel like, I don't know. If you like tall, short, skinny, white, brown, whatever, that's on you. But for me, loyalty and, honesty, and someone who is really eager to protect and provide, and someone who, is actually, because, your partner is almost like your family that you choose,
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
And I know this is not very specific, but, a good person. Um, yeah, I feel like, yeah, and many other things. I mean, I feel like certain things are just obvious. I was gonna
Mm-hmm.
say someone with great hygiene, but it's like, who wants to be with a dirty person?
Yeah, yeah. You'd be
Someone with
surprised.
great style, like, but at the same time, I have, dated someone who, initially I'm like, the fuck are you wearing? But then I helped them out a lot
Okay,
in that sense, So I feel like those
those are
things,
kind of minor things.
yeah, those are kind of minor things, but I would never deal with, like, infidelity. I would never deal with addiction. I would never deal with physical or mental or emotional abuse. You know, it's like, You know the question that you should have asked me? It's not what I look for.
Yeah.
It's what I avoid because I'm not really here.
I feel like that might be a longer list.
Yes.
But man,
Probably.
Iman, thank you so much for
You're
being on. I
welcome.
appreciate you. I hope that people got some value out of this. And this is one of very many sessions that I'm going to have on the topic of love, modern dating, and relationships. So thank you, Iman. I appreciate you. All right.
You're welcome.
Mike, cheers. Ready? Have a good day.